Hi, it's David Orlofsky with our question and answer shorts, which is a new project that we've started. Anonymous asks, I have teen and post-teen girls. Do you have a suggestion for them for long Shabbos nights in the winter or long afternoons in the summer? Unless this person lives in South Africa or in Australia, and then just reverse the seasons. They don't want to say Tehillim. They read magazines, play games, talk or sleep, and eat candy. I'm looking for something ruchnius. Okay. Let me tell you the attitude that I have, because I have 8 girls. When my girls started growing up, I had one philosophy, and that is I wanted my house to be the place where the girls hung out. I didn't want my girls out there without knowing where they were or what was happening. I wanted them and their friends to come in here. It started when the kids were very little. I used to make a Shabbos party every Shabbos. When my kids were little, they could invite in all of their friends. We had a whole stack of them, and I'd give them out treats, and we'd make brachas, and we'd sing some songs, and I'd ask a few very, very simple parsha questions. And we'd make a little party, and the kids loved it. In fact, I had a friend of mine who was a chashuv avreich, and he says to me, my son says to me, Tati, I love Shabbos. And he says, I started patting myself in the back. He says, how come? He says, because the Orlofskys have a Shabbos party. That's what I want. So I used to have at my table, we'd say Divrei Torah and this and that. And I found that my preteens and teens were developing that attitude, and they weren't interested. So I said, okay, we're going to go through a process of rebuilding. We have to rebuild here. Instead of preparing Divrei Torah, I would prepare jokes and brain teasers. I would give them brain teasers where they had to just ask a lot of questions. Because you just present a line and then they have to figure it out. A person pushes his car up in front to a hotel and says, I'm bankrupt. Now they can only ask questions to figure it out. Was a person dead in the room? The doors and windows were locked. There are 2 pieces of wood on the floor. That's it. And they would ask questions and I wanted to engage them. That was my goal, just to engage them. And my kids are very competitive, and at some point we got this book in Hebrew, Otiot Melamdot, where it's questions, 22 questions, Lefi the Aleph Beis. Each answer starts with another letter on the parsha. And it's really made for like 4th, 5th grade, but my kids are highly competitive. And so I would ask these questions and they will fight over who gets the answers and stuff like that, So it was ways of engaging them. After that, I would ask them a question, a thought question on the parsha. And people always ask me for examples. I don't remember them because I would make them up before each meal. But one of them I remember was Parshas Yisro. And it says, Yisro comes with Tzipora and Moshe's 2 sons, Gershom and Eliezer. Gershom ki ger hayisi sham, because I was a stranger there. What does that mean? So says the Baal Turim, because Yisro made a deal with Moshe Rabbeinu that his first child had to be dedicated to Avodah Zarah. And Moshe had no choice, ki ger hayisi sham, I had to agree with this. It seems strange because we know that Yisro had already turned his back on Avodah Zarah, because you see, when his daughters go to the well, they're not able to, go because they chase him away because he turned his back on Avodah Zarah. Why would he do this? The answer is because he wanted at least one of his kids to become a Baal Tshuva like he was, to find out on his own. And I say to my kids, is that a good idea or not? Should you shelter your children, or should you expose your children to all kinds of different things? And they all start arguing. And it's so interesting. Whenever I tell this, people say, what did you tell them in the end? And I said, nothing. That's the point. Because kids love to hear themselves talk. So do adults. But certainly kids, because in school they never get to talk. You know? Teacher asks a question, they just want you to come up with their answer. They don't care what you think. And here they could just give their own opinions. And I'd always have questions like this that they could just argue about. So, if you got a bunch of girls, I would encourage them to invite in their friends and have somebody from the neighborhood give a little shir. Not a stand-up shir, a shir like this. A discussion. Lead a discussion group on a particular topic. Kids love that. It's more fun than reading the mishpacha, except for the kichels. And it's more fun than eating candy. Don't get me wrong, you should also put out candy. I'm a big fan of candy. That's why I have diabetes. I didn't get that from nothing. I worked hard. But the kind of thing where kids can just, especially preteens and teens, love to argue. Find some topic that has relevance to their lives, you know? And what do you do if there's a girl in your class and she's doing bad things and you know about it and nobody else does? Should you rat her out or not? Because if you speak to somebody, maybe they can get her help. But if not, she could just get into trouble and get thrown out of school. It's all your fault. So what should you do? You get it? Those kind of questions. And have somebody come in. Plenty of people, if you live in a frum area, you know, a woman or a rabbi or an up-and-coming person. There are a lot of people who will want to do this. I know this because people say to me, how do you become a speaker? And I say, you speak. So it's an option. So there's a few ideas, and finally I give you a bracha, because that's the main thing. You should have siyata d'shvaya. All right, this is David Orlofsky, and I hope that everybody has a more meaningful Shabbos.